everyone. Today I thought I'd share this really fun little painting that I did recently in the studio. It's this beautiful staircase and it really called to me. I found this photo on a royalty-free reference photo site. Anytime that you are grabbing a reference photo for your painting from a royalty-free reference site, you'll want to make absolutely sure that you are allowed to use that. What I usually do is contact the photographer directly and make sure that they're okay with me using their photo. I've placed the reference photo in the lower right so you can see what we're working with today. And I'm working on a dark paper. This is a UArt Dark 400 Grit. I love working on a dark paper. It's such a fun way to really see your values. When you're working on dark paper, it can be a little bit different if you're not used to it. So even though we're working on a dark paper, I still put in my darks first and work dark to light, just like if you were painting with oils. Start dark to light, and I also work thin to thick. So my beginning marks will be much lighter, and as I go towards my finishing marks, they'll get heavier. You can see that I'm starting with the staircase. Because it's a man-made structure in the composition, it's going to naturally be a focal point. And in order to make it look realistic, I'm trying to be very careful and make sure that it's pretty straight. So I'm using a ruler to do that. Even though I don't consider myself a realist painter, I really prefer a more painterly impressionistic style. I still want people to be able to tell what this is. So trying to be careful, starting to really layer up some of those dark to mid-toned neutrals. It was a little bit of a challenge keeping track of all of those stairs. So I counted them several times and definitely put some work into that area. Just coming back in with some of those lights, trying to start to portray some of the light hitting those areas. And now I'm starting to come into the background, laying in what I consider the center of interest, which is that beautiful, what I believe is a palm leaf. I didn't draw out anything on this painting before I started. I wanted to be kind of loose and free and just go with it. So really just looking at my shapes, starting to put in, if you look at the reference photo, there's some kind of a beautiful red flower in the background in the upper left mid area. Starting to put in some of the darks down at the bottom. As I said before, I want to get my darks in, even if it's going to be a brighter section of foliage. It needs something to sit on, not just the black paper itself. You can see that I laid down a vein in that palm, but I wasn't really happy with it. So I smudged it out and starting to work some more on that area. That palm gave me a little bit of trouble, as you'll see as we move through this piece, but pastel is quite forgiving. It's one of the things that I really love about this medium is that if I'm not happy with the way that it's progressing, I can always brush it out and go back in and rework it. Starting to lay in some of those lights. You can see on the upper section of the fern, I used a much cooler green to indicate that it's in shadow. There I went again, brushing out that vein, tried it a second time, didn't like it. So just reworking that area. Starting to come in around, you can see that the way that I'm hoping that this composition will work is it's really a circular composition. So we've got the stairs leading up to the main center of interest, which is the fern, but we have all this beautiful foliage just surrounding, almost in a vignette type of effect, our staircase and the center of interest, which is that palm. I think I called it a fern earlier, but I believe that just by having this beautiful circular vignette of foliage really creates this strong composition, and that's part of what really attracted me to this reference photo. So that's what I am attempting to achieve here. Starting to lay in some of the midtones in my surrounding foliage. And I'm doing that by really trying to vary my marks. I put down a mark and I will place it in the direction that the leaf is growing and lift up. I don't really like to go in and draw with my pastels. I will do that occasionally, but in a piece like this, I much prefer to use fairly quick, spontaneous strokes. So as you can see, starting to work in some of those worms on the left-hand side. Once I get to the point where I'm laying in the worms, because I do tend to work, not always, but I do tend to work cool to warm, simply because cools in general, this is not a hard and fast rule, but cools in general tend to be more shadowed areas, which tend to be darker. And so working from cool to warm as you're working up, at least in this painting, I can say that this is true. The warms indicate the light, and what we're really doing is painting light. So as I guess you could say, you turn the lights on and start to get those lights coming on, as you can see, like I'm doing here on the right hand side, it really brings the painting to life. Making some adjustments. You could see that I brushed something out with my brush that I wasn't crazy about. Again, that's part of what I love about pastels, that it's so easy to work with. Making a few adjustments to my staircase. I'm certainly not done with it yet. Still have to bring lights into it and do some work down in that lower section too. That first stair doesn't look quite right to me. There we go, starting to bring it to life with some lights down there. Really trying to keep a vignetted effect in this particular piece. I don't often do that, but in this piece, I felt that by keeping the edges a little bit softer would really bring the focal area into the center, which is what I'm hoping to achieve here. Continuing to work those lights, trying to vary up different shades of green. Usually, green can be a difficult color to work with. It can often look garish, and I really love using a lot of muted greens in many of my landscape paintings. This painting was a little different for me because it's a tropical scene with a lot of quite bright, especially in the palm. There's a lot of really bright color, and so I think that's part of what attracted me to this, was using some of that bright color. But it's always good to have some neutrals in your palette. In fact, I did use quite a few neutrals in the surrounding foliage, like what you're looking at right there. It's a pretty neutral greenish blue, keeping it pretty cool, starting to lay in a little bit more saturated hues down there at the bottom. Getting close to finished on this piece. Just looking at where I want to add some details to help lead the eye up into the painting. I want to create a sense of mystery about what is back up those stairs, and creating a little bit of detail heading up into that area is going to help lead the eye up there. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this piece come together. I really enjoy painting for you guys and sharing my techniques. I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more to share with you, and I'll see you soon.